The throne room of the Valeth conclave smelled of cold starlight and old fear. Princess Valeth Aruna stood at its center, silver-veined hands clasped before her, violet eyes fixed on the holographic star map that turned slowly above the council table. 3 sectors lost. 40 billion subjects under occupation. And the Dominion fleet was still moving. There is one option remaining, said High Elder Soren, his voice carrying the particular exhaustion of a being who had run out of other ideas. A treaty marriage. To the Terran commander. Silence fell over the chamber like a stone into deep water. Valeth did not flinch. She had read the intelligence reports. She knew what Ethan Cross was. What humans were. A species barely 3 centuries out of their home system, with no genetic enhancements, no precognitive nets, no neural lattice armor. They were, by every measurable metric, inferior. And yet, the Dominion has not attacked a single human-held world in 19 years, she said quietly. Not one. Not even when provocation was obvious. Correct, said Soren. And no one who has fought them, fights them twice. The ISV Unconquered Sun was not what Valeth expected. She had imagined a warship would feel like threat made metal. Cold. Efficient. Built for intimidation. Instead, the human vessel smelled faintly of something called coffee, a bitter, dark liquid that, she would later learn, humans consumed in quantities that would hospitalize most species, and the corridors were covered in small handwritten notes, sketches, and faded photographs of families pinned beside battle station consoles. They decorated their weapons with memories. Commander Ethan Cross met her at the docking bay without ceremony. He was shorter than she'd expected. Broad through the shoulders. Dark-haired, with the kind of face that had been weathered by something harder than sunlight. He wore no medals. He had been offered many, she would later learn. He declined all of them. Princess. He extended a hand. The human gesture of greeting. Physical contact on first meeting, a vulnerability in any other species. An offer of trust. She took it. His grip was firm. Not crushing. He wasn't trying to demonstrate anything. He simply shook her hand the way one person shakes the hand of another person they intend to take seriously. Something in her threat assessment cortex went very quiet. Commander Cross, she said. I appreciate your willingness to. Call me Ethan, he said. We're getting married, apparently. Might as well skip to first names. She stared at him. He smiled. It was not a political smile. It reached his eyes. Come on, he said. I'll show you the ship. And I'll explain why the Dominion stopped hitting us. It's a better story than whatever your intelligence reports say. The story, as it turned out, began 19 years ago on a colony world called Meridian's Gate. Ethan told it to her over that strange dark beverage in a small officer's mess, while stars slid past the viewport like slow-moving promises. The Dominion had taken Meridian's Gate expecting an easy conquest. A Terran settlement. No fleet, no garrison, minimal defenses. What they found instead was 312 colonists, farmers, engineers, one physician, a retired schoolteacher, and a 17-year-old boy named Ethan Cross, who had apparently not received the message that they were supposed to surrender. They held for 91 days. They used mining tunnels as ambush corridors. They rigged agricultural equipment as traps. They reprogrammed irrigation drones for reconnaissance. They left the Dominion's forward battalion confused, exhausted, and, most critically, unable to figure out what was coming next. We didn't win, Ethan said, wrapping both hands around his mug. I want to be clear about that. We lost Meridian's Gate. But the Dominion lost an entire forward battalion's worth of time, resources, and credibility taking 300 farmers. He paused. And they knew it. That explains one engagement, Valeth said carefully. Not 19 years of restraint. Ethan looked at her. There was something measuring in it. Not unfriendly. More like he was deciding how much she was ready to understand. After Meridian's Gate, he said, their strategists ran projections. They wanted to know if what happened there was typical. So they looked at every conflict humans had been in. Every war on our own world, and there were many, every skirmish, every siege, every guerrilla campaign in 5,000 years of recorded human history. He set down his mug. You know what they found? She waited. We don't know when to stop, he said simply. Other species calculate survival thresholds. There's a point, a rational point, where a species surrenders, adapts, accepts occupation, because the math says resistance is no longer viable. Humans. He paused. We never really evolved that calculation. Or we evolved it and then kept ignoring it. Meridian's Gate wasn't exceptional. It was normal. Take something from us, and some of us will fight you forever. Long after it's tactically sensible. Long after we've lost. We'll hide in tunnels. We'll teach our children. We'll wait generations. He looked out at the stars. The Dominion asked one question, what is the cost of final victory over humanity? And the answer they came back with was, we don't know. And we can't know. Because humans will not give us a ceiling. Valeth sat very still. She had studied military strategy for 40 years. She understood deterrence theory, escalation calculus, the mathematics of imperial expansion. And in all of it, there was one fundamental assumption she had never once thought to question. Every species has a breaking point. You don't, she said slowly. You don't have one. Some of us do, Ethan said honestly. Individually. But collectively? He shook his head. We're not brave. I want to be clear, this isn't about bravery. It's something stranger than that. We get attached. To places, to people, to ideas. And when something threatens what we're attached to, a certain percentage of us will simply not stop. Cannot be made to stop. The math doesn't reach us. He looked at her then, and his voice was quieter. The Dominion isn't afraid of our weapons, Princess. They're afraid of our irreversibility. Beat us and we rebuild. Occupy us and we resist for 1,000 years. Destroy us and we become a story that inspires every other species to do what we did. He paused. You can't win a war against people who won't agree that they've lost. The wedding was small. By the terms of the treaty, it needed only to be witnessed. 2 officers from the conclave, 2 from the Terran fleet. An elder who read words in a language older than both their civilizations. Valeth Aruna, princess of the conclave, 4th in line to the crystalline throne, stood beside a human man with tired eyes and no medals, and she thought about irreversibility. About a 17-year-old boy in a mining tunnel, holding a position that math said was hopeless, for 91 days. About a species that had somehow stumbled into the most powerful deterrent in the known galaxy not through technology or evolution, but through a simple, stubborn, deeply irrational refusal to agree that they were beaten. Ethan glanced at her sideways during the ceremony. He had dressed carefully. He'd borrowed better clothes. It was a small thing. It meant something. You're thinking hard, he murmured, low enough that only she could hear. I'm reconsidering several foundational assumptions, she said. He almost smiled. Good habit. The elder pronounced them bound under star and treaty. The Dominion fleet, 3 sectors over, had already begun its withdrawal. Word traveled fast. The Terran commander's household was now tied to the conclave. And everyone in known space understood, in the bone-deep way that empires understand things they refuse to say aloud, that this meant humans were involved now. No one needed to say anything further. No empire that had ever tested them had tried again. Not because humanity had the biggest ships. Not because they had the sharpest weapons. But because somewhere in the cold logic of galactic warfare, a truth had been etched that no strategist dared ignore. Humanity does not recognize the end of the game. And that makes them impossible to beat. Vailith looked at her husband, at this quiet, tired, extraordinary man, and thought that perhaps she had not come here to end a war at all. Perhaps she had come here to understand one. And perhaps, she thought, as his hand found hers with the same unassuming certainty he'd offered at the docking bay. That was exactly what he'd intended.